So today we're going to talk about 4 different subject matters in relation to partnering with your IT department. First of all, we want to focus on the interaction and communication within your IT department. Second, we want to provide guidelines and a system overview on generally what it takes to and understand IT from their point of view and their division and their infrastructure and how they're set up. Also, we want to understand IT processes and priorities, and I think that's a very good point. Who was at yesterday's keynote session? Can you raise your hands? So yesterday we heard Dr. Joe Webb talk about one of the trends that are going on within our industry right now, and that's the hiring of IT people within your implant. And the reason why is really to start understanding these processes. We've used our own experiences to develop this presentation, as well as communicate it with our vendor community, helped develop this presentation as well. So I want to thank RSA. So the very first quote I have is just in general communication paragraph, just when working with ITs to understand the relationships that we're still working with people. And that, remember that projects are run by people, and the better you are at fostering that communication and compromising towards shared goals, the smoother your project will run. I'm going to talk about our next slide in regards to obviously a strategic plan and really talking about core goals together and really kind of getting together. And obviously, as different divisions and different business entities, they have a strategic plan. We have a strategic plan on what we want to accomplish going forward. And it's really just kind of taking those two and merging the two together. To kind of go over a general example of how we do it at the state of Colorado, Brenda's going to come up here and present generally like a playbook, for example. And let me go and pull that up. I'll pull that up and then you can talk about that, Brenda. Okay.
So you hit on one of the key things that Teddy and I want to stress today is making sure that your IT department is bought in. And the way, a couple of ways you get the IT department, the biggest way is, does it align with the IT department strategy? Teddy's brought up for you what we call we call it a playbook, and we do this annually. It's our strategic roadmap for the upcoming year. And so you go through, here's our wonderful CIO. I have to show her picture because she loves it, it's beautiful. And she's an awesome CIO. We talk about, we use a discipline called the 4DX, so we call our strategies, we call them WIGs, wildly important goals. We had a heyday with that when we first rolled this out, the whole WIGs idea. But the first thing I want to show you, so we have, one of our WIGs, our strategies, is to increase service excellence. So as a customer service provider, we put out a survey to our customer base and asked, would you recommend using OAT for other strategies? So this kind of tied with Teddy's project on the managed print services, because we really do want to provide a better customer service experience for our customers with print services. The other thing, I'm just going to scroll down, close your eyes so I don't make you sick, but is the other one, sorry I passed it, is on security. So Colorado, we're in, I think it's our second year. We have a strategic plan for security called Secure Colorado, and it's a 4-year roadmap for improving our security just within Colorado. So we're looking for a 10% reduction in the state's enterprise risk score. So we're scoring each of the departments on how their security risk is. And again, when we met with Teddy on this project, it was definitely of interest to our security department to get more involved and make sure that the project and the processes and the standards we developed were secure. So again, one of the best ways to get a successful project with your IT department is make sure that your goals are aligning with theirs and get their buy-in up front.
Switch over real fast.
Sorry, I know I'm IT, but Teddy's much better at it.
Thank you.
Let's see, we need to go back up. Okay. So we talked about the strategic plan. A couple of other areas that we engage with IDS, Teddy's department, is in the transactional printing area. So we have a big program in Colorado called CBMS. It stands for Colorado Benefits Management System. And what it is, it's just our social services programs. So within that program, we do millions of dollars of bulk print on letters, benefit letters, the notifications from the feds. All of that rolls through Teddy's print shop. So we're very much engaged there. Managed print services, print governance. Again, I think Teddy's going to touch on this a little bit more. But how can we better educate our customers and make sure that they're understanding, again, the standards, training, how are we governing the business of print? And then I talked a little bit more about security. The other thing, we don't have it on the slide here, but you mentioned the project planning. One of the other ways to better make sure your IT project or your IT program staff are involved is follow the project planning process. So at OIT, we actually have a statutorily defined, very formal project management process. So we go through gating. And through that gating process, we evaluate how does that project align with our strategy and goals. Do we have the right staff and resources assigned to it? Have we done the business analysis to make sure that that project is going to be successful? In this case, Teddy mentioned, and for those of you that were here, I think, was it 2 years ago you did the lean business case?
Yes.
So we spent a lot of time working with an outside vendor to do a lean project over rolling this project out, and we determined it was millions of dollars in savings that were identified for doing this. So it was a win-win for the IT department and the print shop when we looked at this.
Okay, I'm just going to touch base in regards to an in-plant when it comes to some of these subjects here, and really how I got my IT department engaged. We talk about managed print services and the way we were going to integrate that with an in-plant. We want to do is, OIT, for example, was getting around 400 job tickets, and if you read some of these job tickets to the desktop support team, they were like, my power's not working on my printer. If I can sit there and offer them a proactive solution that we know about these things before they do, they submit a ticket, we can actually have that group focus on more core competencies that are around project development for IT. Print governance, how can that help an implant? Well, if we roll software that helps educate the customer, that tells them, hey, you know what, by printing this to your implant, you're going to save money going forward. Education, like, hey, printing to this printer is cheaper than printing to that printer. That goes a long way, and that's a way to educate our customers on going forward and really trying to govern and manage print. Security. As Brenda mentioned, we have a Secure Colorado forum. I'm actually a member of Secure Colorado, and I suggest that for any implanter that's wanting to work with technology, you want to integrate with your Secure Colorado team, because I'll be honest, if you provide a secure IT solution, I mean, what's more important than that? Because at the end of the day, we want to make sure that we're printing things that are secure, that our network's protected. So those go a long way, and that's a real big one for me. I'm going to go ahead and just demonstrate real fast. I'm going to talk roughly about framework around IT project, and then kind of transition to Brenda before. So, of course, like a lot of you gentlemen and ladies here, we actually develop, we have ideas. And I developed an idea one day just on my MFP program. I want to be able to transition scanning from my Xerox MFP today to our Documentum, our shared enterprise content management system. I want to directly go to that, and I drafted on my whiteboard this.
Can I point out a couple of things here? So Teddy and I were doing a little rehearsal before you guys came in, and I looked at this and I was like, what is that? But then I see, he's got a firewall drawn here. Okay, that's cool. He's got a couple of firewalls. So I'm like, okay, he's speaking my language. Not quite what I'm used to. Go ahead and show him what we came back with, Teddy.
So generally what I do is I engage an IT liaison within my department. Like, hey, look, I have this project. Here's a rough draft of how I want it to work. Here's how I want it to work. And not only did IT just engage him, but he liked the idea of how I could just scan from my Xerox into our Documentum, our enterprise content management system. If I could do that right from your device, that sounds like a great deal, Teddy. That's a great deal. Let me take your work here and let me see how I can make it fit within the OIT realm. So not only did OIT come back, but this is what he developed for me, was just here's how your system's going to work, how it's going to be, here's how it's architected from a secure point of view. And not only that, Teddy, this is your vision, because you say you want to go 690 Kipling. I believe my recommendation going forward, we can eliminate that server. We don't have to go there, Teddy. We can now just go strictly down to our enterprise content management. So they were able to provide me a couple of list options just by engaging them. And of course, this will look a lot better in my business plan presenting to my manager, Mike Lincoln, I would say. So, by getting that architecture from Framework approved really kind of helps me understand, I have the idea. My point is, if you have an idea, jot it down, get it to them, and just work with them. Like, hey, here's what I have. What can you do? Can you give me some pointers of how it might look? And therefore, we can make a more educated decision going forward.
Can I add a comment?
Yes.
Teddy? So the other thing I want to stress here is Teddy was open about the solution. So he had an idea in his mind, but he was open about how it got architected and how it got put together. And I think that, again, goes a long way with your engaging your IT department, that you're open to hearing their suggestions on maybe a better way or a different way to architect the program. So I want to talk about, so I mentioned before that we have a very, very formal process for bringing on projects. Within those projects, we do have obviously we have different IT roles that are required to help make that project successful. So as Teddy mentioned, he worked really closely with our security team. So as part of governing projects, we have a security review. The other part is, and he mentions it down at the bottom, you have to involve your networking team in this case. Not only networking, but the data center contacts, because you're going to touch the data centers. The server manager had to look at the project to make sure that they could manage the change on how we did it. The biggest piece, and Teddy and I talk about this even still today, is making sure that the desktop people in the end are bought in and know the strategy, know the outcome. Because the desktop people in our case are the first touch point, as Teddy mentioned, with those tickets and rolling those printers out or bringing them back in. So the desktop people were very, very key to the project. Did I see a question?
Both of us. Okay, you go first. Yeah, all right. You okay we interrupt?
No, that's
okay?
fine. No, that's fine.
I know as a presenter, it makes it easier to kind of focus on stuff.
It's fine.
So my experience is this: as these roles start fragmenting, meaning you're in charge of server hardware, you're in charge of virtualization, you're in charge of network, you're in charge of the desktop support side. How do you cohesively bring the vision of what the original project was? Typically what we'll have a vendor that comes in and says, this is what it's supposed to look like, this is your marketing, this is what it's going to do. And we buy into that concept, and then we have to communicate that to the IT department, and then they span it out to all these other sub-departments. How do you maintain that vision and the buy-off on the end that this is what the project needed to be, and this is what it ended up being? Are we okay with that?
I'll give an answer, and then Teddy, if you want to jump in with your specific experience on this. But for us, we have project managers. So we have specific IT project managers, different than a business side project manager. So in the most successful projects, what I see is the combination of that IT project manager and that business project manager coming together. So for us on the IT side, that project manager is responsible for ensuring that cohesive view still continues even once the pieces have been fragmented out to the different units. We also in Colorado have we call them IT directors, and they are they're the customer liaison to each department to IT. So between those two, the project manager and the IT director, that's their responsibility to make sure that we're keeping the view whole and we're not losing pieces and parts, because I know exactly what you're talking about. The server guys go off, they do their thing, and they're like, Well, the data center guy didn't tell me that. I didn't know that was gonna happen. So we definitely have to make a point of making sure that on these big projects, that cohesive view is held together.
So I just want a quick show of hands before I answer that question. How many people actually engage their IT departments when they're looking at a software or going to a demo? How does that work out for you by engaging them, getting their ideas regarding those? So, okay. So
Sometimes it's better to say, forgive me.
Ask for forgiveness, not for permission.
Yeah.
So, as Brenda suggested, we have a pretty organized project management team that supports us, but in my experiences in the past, what I've had to do is really with managed print services because, to be honest with you, when I sat there and I looked at all 5 of these people, my desk side managers who manage print today, they're not really sold on that idea. So what I have to do is I have to really go and talk to each of these entities of business to really kind of explain to them, like, okay, here's the current state, here's the future state, and here's how it can benefit you. I think that's what everybody's asking is, how are you going to make my job easier? And let's be honest, we're implants, we're looking for solutions that how to really make things easier and print better. I mean, that's our goal. So it's really about engagement, and we're going to go and talk about that a little bit more in detail about when to engage your IT department, how often to engage them. Like you said, with each of these teams, and just like Brenda said, I didn't get a chance to meet with, the project manager kind of comes later, but if I could at least tip the server guys off, like, hey, I'm going to need some virtual server space. If I need networking guys, this is how many data jacks I'm going to need for all my equipment. The desk side team, here's who's going to have to support the project. If it's not proactive or it goes down, contingency plans. You have to engage all of them separate, just to let them know. It could be via email. For me, I'm a people person. I'm going to go down, meet with them, talk to them about the solution. Again, you want to point out, first of all, how it's going to benefit them, and then really just kind of like, hey, can I please have your support? So then when you do submit that project plan going forward, you have these people, and you can actually reference these people to your project manager to get these people involved, that, hey, we talked about this, and we get them involved. So that was my strategy on how I was able to get this done with at least my managed print service project. So I just want to let you guys know that when it comes to security regarding an IT implant, Rita Posner did a great session 2 years ago that can be found on the RSA website, Rochester Software Associates website. It's very awesome just to look at her ideas and really kind of how to move forward and working with OIT. So just as a... So the very first thing I want to talk about is obviously Brenda and I have talked about is really engaging IT early and often. Any big mistake that any implant can make is really kind of rolling out what you think is your best solution going forward. And like one of our experiences today, you get 3 years down the road, hey, it's squashed. And, so it's not just early, it's often. So I'm going to give a prior experience. I was working on the Lean Principle project with the OIT prior to Brenda Berlin being hired on by the Governor's Office of IT. The original CFO at the time was Todd Olson, and he had just left for another opportunity. Going forward, right when that transition happened, I think I was Brenda's 3rd day in the office. I was in her office. Do you still support this? Do you still buy into this? So it's very important to really just keep that momentum up. And let's be honest, with IT, and I'm sure in a lot of your offices, that changeover is pretty big. So you're constantly going to be in constant communication and let them know your ideas, and of course engaging. As my example before with the framework, if you can just get them something like, hey, here's what I have on a piece of paper, how can you make this better? Praising them to a certain extent, like, hey, I need your expertise, you're the subject matter expert in this area, so can you please help me? That goes a long way. Bring IT into your first development meeting. I asked that question just a while ago. It's like, hey, when we're looking at our vendors today, I honestly wish I had some desk side support up here just to say, hey, look what we can do for you guys here. Engage them when we're going to these type of shows, and I would really like to see kind of more of an IT presence, at least some project managers up here to hey, here's what we're doing, here's what's new in our world. Get their buy-in early, have a development meeting. Like I suggested, even though in our segmented environments, and some IT departments have it segmented, like the Governor's Office of IT and I, with the networking team, the architecture team, the desktop team, some entities of business might have just one project manager that handles all that for you guys, but just really get them into those development meetings. Like, here's our vision, here's where we want to be, we really want to get you involved, and that's just one way to get their support in there. When I talk about IT providing functional insight, I'm going to use the example that and I'm just going to use the multi-function printer example because that's the one I'm familiar with, is I went to OIT and I said, hey, I want to open up remote access to all printers. So what that does for all copiers, it just lets them send two-way communication through the firewall port. It sends meter reads, it updates our client, or updates toner supplies for all of our customers. And OIT came back and said, Teddy, you know, that's 1,100 devices. That's 1,100 instances of opening up firewalls. That's really not the right way to do that. So,
I was choking a little bit even just when you said it, if you didn't see me squirm.
so, you know, OIT came back to me, the IT security team came back to me like, Teddy, look, there's a different way to do this. We could have a virtual server and 18 state departments. All this information goes into, feed it through just 18 different servers through the firewall. Instead of having 1,000 instances, I only have 18 now. And that to them was more secure. So that's an example of just when IT provides that functional insight, it's just important just to listen and just, you know, those ideas might, you know, you listen to their ideas, you implement those ideas, the more you're going to get your project done and more buy-in. And then, of course, develop key stakeholder support. So it's not just, you know, us providing a solution, but I think it's very important for our customers to be part of that meeting. Hey, look, here's what our customers want. You know, when I approached Brenda regarding the OIT Lean project, it's like, you know, look, we have a 15 agency customer base that's satisfied with our service. Here are the things they want with proactive monitoring. They want automated supply since we can't do it through a firewall, you know, at this current time because firewalls are closed for almost like function copiers for the state of Colorado. But, you know, getting them into those meetings for your support to say, hey, because at the end of the day, OIT supports us. We're a customer, just like IT supports you guys. You guys are still customers of theirs. So you definitely, you know, hey, here's our customers, and let's work on this together going forward. So it's very important to develop that key stakeholder support and rapport.
That we've learned and we're trying to be better about is don't be afraid to stop them if they're going down the wrong path. To your point, you know, it saddens me that 3 years later, you know, is when you finally, you know, said, okay, fine, let's end it. I just want to say, if there's anything, don't be afraid to stop if it's going down the wrong way. And, you know, your IT department will appreciate the conversation, because they also don't want to roll out an unsuccessful project. It doesn't look good for them either. So I just want to kind of close with that. Don't be afraid to stop if it's not going the right way. But let's make all of our best efforts up front to help ensure that that project is successful.